Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, bringing you our 2011 Sun Belt Conference preview. Now, you know the Sun Belt Conference holds the most prestigious and best athletic program in all of college athletics, the University of Louisiana, home of the Ragin Cajuns. So let's see how well these teams recruited this past offseason by hitting the recruiting trail. Best recruiting class in the Sun Belt Conference. I'm going to go with Middle Tennessee. They did a great job recruiting, stacked up that defensive line, and stacked a lot of talent. But the headliner of this class, you have to look at defensive back Rodney O'Neal. He was a running back in high school as well as a defensive back. But this guy brings a lot of quickness to the position, very agile, and he's probably going to help out on kickoff returns and punt returns as well because of his running ability. So this was a huge coup for the Blue Raiders. Some other key recruits in the Sun Belt Conference. Let's start with North Texas's quarterback Cooper Jones. This guy is going to be outstanding for the Mean Green. Very strong arm, very mobile, and that's what you want out of a quarterback. Offensive lines where the Red Wolves made their mark this year in recruiting. Aaron Williams is going to be a stud right out the gate as a JUCO transfer. You look at Florida Atlantic, getting Conrad Johnson. This guy is going to be an outstanding linebacker. Going under great tutelage, going to be a great player for years to come. Now you look at Florida International, Giovanni Francois, guy that's a terror off the end, always in the backfield, outstanding player, 6'1", 235 pounds. Troy adds another playmaker in Brian Holmes. This guy could have went to anywhere in the country, but he chose to bring his talents to Troy, Alabama. Now you also look at the Louisiana Ragin Cajuns, getting the talented tailback Alonzo Harris. This guy's going to be a force in that Ragin Cajun backfield. One of my favorite players in the country, Hunter Kissinger. This guy is going to be an outstanding blitzer and should fit well in that 3-3-5 attack style defense of the Warhawks. Now you look at Western Kentucky, getting the tight end Mitchell Henry, one of the best tight ends in the country. This guy is going to be a terror, controlling the seams and making big plays down the field. Sun Belt Conference superlatives, starting with the best quarterbacks in the SBC. I'm going with the Troy Trojans. They're last year's Sun Belt Rookie of the Year, and Corey Robinson. Guy can do it through the air. He can do it on the ground. He's going to lead that Troy offense for the next 3 years. Very solid player. Best running backs in the Sun Belt Conference. It's a tie. You have to go with Western Kentucky. These guys have Bobby Rain, as you see right here in the video. He's an outstanding running back, over 1,500 yards rushing on the ground. And you add true freshman Quatario Morgan. These guys are going to be explosive in the backfield. Also, you got to go with the Mean Green. These guys have Lance Dunbar. This guy rushed for over 1,600 yards last year. He's going to be a legitimate pro prospect. Very tough to bring down. And what is very underrated about his game is his pass catching ability. Best receiving core in the Sun Belt Conference. I'm going with Arkansas State. They have one of the top passing games in the country. So let alone the Sun Belt Conference. These guys go 4 deep at the wide receiver spot. You look at the top 3 wide receivers all over 500 yards. Dwayne Frampton, Allen Muse, Taylor Stockamer. These guys can make plays, and when you have a quarterback like Ryan Applin throwing you the football, there's a lot of opportunity to make a lot of catches and a lot of touchdowns. Best offensive line in the Sun Belt Conference. I'm going with Middle Tennessee State. These guys have 4 out of 5 starters returning, led by their center, Colin Boss. This guy is a true leader on that offensive line and should be a future NFL player. Best defensive line in the Sun Belt Conference. I'm going to Defensive Line University, Troy University. The Trojans do a phenomenal job of recruiting, especially on the defensive line. You look at the defensive end, Jonathan Massaquoi, another talented pass rusher, but their defensive tackles are very solid. Sadell Corley is a guy I really like. Best linebacking group. I'm going back to Jonesboro, Arkansas with the Arkansas State Red Wolves linebacker Demario Davis. This guy is a thumper, 6'3", 230 pounds, but also Nathan Harold is another guy that's very, very solid. Solid group right here for Arkansas State. Best defensive backs in the Sun Belt Conference. I'm going with North Texas. One thing I like about these guys, they're very solid on the corners. You look at guys like Royce Hill, the Leon McCord, even their safety spots with a guy like Brad Graham at 6 feet 199. These guys can really play on the back half of that defense. Best special teams unit in the Sun Belt Conference. Middle Tennessee State has one of the best punters in Josh Davis and also one of the best returners in Eric Russell. Very good, solid special teams. Offensive MVP, I'm going with Ryan Applin out of Arkansas State. This guy is outstanding. 6'1", 205, does damage on the ground, but has a rocket for an arm and always is putting the Red Wolves in the best situation possible. This guy is going to be a star this year for the Red Wolves. Defensive MVP, I'm going back to Troy for defensive end Jonathan Massaquoi. This guy had 13 and a half sacks last season and is the next in a long line of talented pass rushers from Troy. Freshman of the year, I'm going with Western Kentucky's running back Quatario Morgan. This guy Could have signed with anybody in the country, chose to stay local and went with Western Kentucky. Should be a stud for the Hilltoppers. Best pro prospect, it's a tie. University of Louisiana's tight end Ladarius Green is a guy that I really like. Could have came out last year for the NFL draft. 6'6", 230 pounds, soft hands. But what I really like is that he's not afraid to block. Actually, is a very good block, and that's one underrated aspect of his game. Should be a star at the next level. Also, you have to go with Ty Hilton out of Florida International. This guy runs a legit 4.2 40, can help you out in the return game, both kickoff and punt return, but also has the soft hands and has that deep speed that stretches defenses. Toughest schedule in the Sun Belt Conference. This is very easy. Florida Atlantic opens up with 5 consecutive road games. Very tough opponents at Florida, at Michigan State, at Auburn. That's a murderous slate. But you look at November, they have to go on the road to FIU and Troy. That's a tough slate for the Owls. Predictions in the Sun Belt Conference, starting with the Florida Atlantic Owls at number 9. Reasons for optimism. You gotta love the tailback Alfred Morris, one of the guys that's gonna play in the NFL on Sundays, and the 5 returning starters on that offensive line, and they run an aggressive 3-4 defense. Cause for concern is that run D and the secondary losses, and they're breaking in some new quarterbacks. Can they get that straightened out? That's going to be the biggest question. But what we will learn is that they will be mentally tough by playing 5 consecutive road games. This is going to be a tough team in 2012. Man, I have to put my Louisiana Ragin Cajuns at number 8. But reasons for optimism for the Cajuns, you got to love the defensive line and the switch to a multiple defense. These guys are going to be aggressive now. And you also got to love Ladarius Green at tight end and those running backs. They can all catch the football out of the backfield. Cause for concern is the quarterback play. Can someone play consistent for the Cajuns? And an offensive line has to do a better job of pass protection. Now, what we will learn is that they will be better than advertised this year. I'm guessing they can get to 6 wins and possibly sneak into a bowl game. That'll be an improvement over last season. Number 7, I have the North Texas Mean Green. Reasons for optimism. You gotta love head coach Dan McCarney. This guy's an outstanding coach, and the running back Lance Dunbar. They're going to lean on him a lot this season, but they need balance, and that's the reason I have concerns. Quarterback questions, but their interior defensive line also has some issues. What we will learn is that Lance Dunbar will be an All-American by the end of this season. Number 6, I have the Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders. Reasons for optimism is quarterback Logan Kilgore. This guy can make plays through the air, unlike Dasher, and they have a veteran offensive line, so that should help out a lot. Cause for concern is that young defense and the production from the wide receivers. Can the wide receivers step up and make plays consistently? But what we will learn is that they will drop significantly in turnovers and will be a better team overall. Western Kentucky I have at number 5. Reasons for optimism. They have one of the best quarterback, running back, offensive line combos in the country, so they're very solid on offense. Defensive line is an outstanding, bunch, so these guys can get pressure on the QB. Cause for concern is that wide receiving core, and how can they replace linebacker Thomas Major? That would be the question. But what we'll learn from the Hilltoppers is that 2012 will be their breakout season. They should be a team that might win the conference next year. Number 4, I have Arkansas State. Reasons for optimism. You gotta love the best passing game in the Sun Belt Conference. Quarterback Ryan Applin does a great job getting these guys the football. Cause for concern is that offensive line. Can they pass block? Can they open up holes for the running game? And they have secondary holes that need to be solved. But what we'll learn is that they will probably head into the conference play 2-2 and make a second run for a conference title. At number 3, I have the Troy Trojans. Reasons for optimism for Troy. Healthy secondary and exciting quarterback play in Corey Robertson. These guys are going to be explosive offensively, and getting that secondary back healthy is going to be huge. Now, cause for concern, they have woes on the offensive line, and they need to find a wide receiver to be a playmaker with the loss of Jarrell Jernigan, and they have tough road games. That's something you want to watch. But what we'll learn is that defensive end Jonathan Massaquoi will be the next great Troy pass rusher to make it to the NFL. At number 2, I have the Louisiana Monroe Warhawks. Reasons for optimism. The defense is very stout, and you gotta like quarterback Colton Browning. This guy is outstanding. He's the leader of that offense, does a great job of facilitating the football. Causes for concern is that September schedule is very tough, and that secondary, cornerbacks in particular, is where I have the question about the Warhawks. But what we will learn is that they will go bowling this season. I think they'll do a great job of getting at least 6 or 7 wins and get into a bowl game. Number 1, I have the Florida International Panthers. winning the Sun Belt Conference. Reason for optimism: they have a deep squad, both offensively and defensively, and they have the favorable schedule. The defensive front end is good, and the back end is outstanding in the secondary. Cause for concern is that linebacking core in the kicking game. Can they solve those issues in the special teams aspect? That's a big question. But what we will learn is they will win 7 or 8 games, and Cristobal will remain because he's not going to leave what he has at Florida International. They have a wealth of talent in that area. For more college football conference previews, visit footballgameplan.com/collegefootball or visit our YouTube channel at youtube.com/footballgameplan. And listen to the Football Game Plan radio show, which airs Saturdays 11 a.m. Eastern Time at blogtalkradio.com/footballgameplan. Oh, and before I forget, go Cajuns.